Last week on the Back Nine Report, we were talking about the Premier Golf League and the 18 tournaments that they want to set up with $10 million purses. They're talking some of the top pros. They want to just have the 48 top pros from the world involved in these 18 tournaments, paying big purses. And one of the things is, from the PGA Tour standpoint, they keep raising purses. And the guys are making so much money, I don't know what the incentive would be for them to leave. But Carlos brought up an interesting point as we were debating this last week, and you came up with an 18 tournament schedule that could be like a world tour and embody the current European Tour and the PGA Tour.
Right. It's about combining the 10 most important tournaments from the PGA Tour. The European Tour already has the Rolex Series, which is 8 tournaments. Then you go to the 3 FedEx Cup tournaments from the PGA Tour and add those classic tournaments like the API for Arnold Palmer. You cannot leave it out. The Memorial Tournament, which is Jack's tournament. The Players Championship is already a big tournament. You have to add at least 3 more to make it 10 from them. So you could add the Farmers Insurance to keep it there in California as well. The Genesis, because Tiger is involved with it. So that's another big tournament you can add. And you have to have that international flavor, which is already brought by the 8 Rolex Series events from the European Tour. But if you add the market from South Korea, which we already have with the PGA Tour for the CJ Cup, and Japan, which is the other big market on the Asian market, that is already filled up by the Zozo Championship. So that makes it 18 tournaments.
And then adding in the Tour Championship, the 3 playoff events.
Correct, which would be the last 3 for the FedEx Cup. So that makes 18 in total. And you have the major championships, which will bring in players also, of course, from the PGA Tour and the European Tour. They will stay standalone. And all the other tournaments remain on the European Tour, and the PGA Tour will remain for the other players that are not making that 48, which is the number that has been thrown around by the PGL. And it sounds good. I mean, 48, you can have 24 pairings going out every time. With that, you leave the WGCs as the big tournament for all those other 2 tournaments, for those other 2 tours. And what would you do is like have people, I would think, and this is just thinking out loud, you have 48 players, but what you do is maybe the top 30 remain safe for the next year. So you incentivize the players from the European Tour and the PGA Tour, like, okay, the last 16 will have to be able to qualify again for next year. So you make the top 8 from here and the top 8 from the European Tour, bring them like to a qualifying tournament and see how they're going to bring. Because, of course, from the 48 that you have, those should be invited at the top 48 players, but some of them might fell off the rankings during the season. And of course, you have to handle how the schedule will be, because what the PGL is trying to make is make them commit to all 18. Yep. So when you add the 4 majors, that's 22 tournaments, which for people like Tiger, he's not going to play 22 times. Mickelson, not 22 times. So there's going to be players that you have to have maybe alternates to come in and play and fill that 48 player field. So you're going to have some alternate players and make sure that, because if you leave the other players out, how are you going to incentivize them to come into the World Tour? Yeah. So that would be a way to keep them there. And then, of course, those other minor tours that are behind, like the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour Latin America, the Mackenzie Tour, and now the PGA Tour China on the European Tour is the Challenge. Those would be the feeder tours for them.
This has great possibility. I really think this has a lot of merit. Number one, a couple points here. Tournaments like the Memorial, like the Arnold Palmer, they're starting to suffer a little bit from a field standpoint because of the compressed schedule. Guys are picking and choosing their weeks to take off. And Jack's tournament, the Memorial, is always 2 weeks before the U.S. Open, so that's a logical time maybe to take off and get ready for the U.S. Open. Also, the Arnold Palmers, since the death of Arnold Palmer, the field quality has really dropped down there, because now with the Players' Championship in March, it really affects guys wanting to play 2 or 3 weeks in a row. So you got Mexico in there and the Players, and Arnold Palmer is a great place to take off now. So that would give incentive to play in those events. It would bring big names to those events. The second part of this is by having 48 or 50 or whatever number you set on that, you're getting the top names, and so you're guaranteeing the sponsors a lot of eyeballs. Right. So you're upping the purse, but the sponsors are going to like it because they're going to get a lot of play. They're going to be seen on TV. And like now at the Arnold Palmer, they got to be struggling for sponsorship because their numbers are going down because the field isn't there. So those are two very big positives, I would think, for the PGA Tour. And then the European Tour, it's got to be big for them because it's going to help them with even their 8 Rolex Series events, give them quality fields, and they're going to get some of the top American names instead of just the top European names.
Right. The sponsors will fly in because they know that they have the top players, like you're saying. So they're going to have the TV time. The players are going to be there because they're committed. So you know that they're going to be there. It's going to be easier for them to raise the purses of those 18 tournaments to at least 10 million very easily. And also the players will be more willing to commit because it's only 48. It's a no cut tournament. So they know all of them are going to get paid at that point. Everybody's going to get some piece of the pie. The other point would be also a question that I got asked is how would the Ryder Cup survive with that? Same thing. Exactly. The tournaments will still remain available for ranking. So the top players from the U.S. and the top players from Europe will still be ranked and will be.
Maybe the Americans could even get better because they're playing against the top Europeans all the time,
and they'll be playing in their courses. So yeah,
maybe they win one once in a while.
Yeah, it can change. It can change.
Welcome to this special edition of Back Nine Report TV with my good friend Carlos Torres, talking about the effects of increased purses, maybe a world tour. And one of the things that we're seeing, they've been talking about this Premier Golf League. So one of the things, the PGA Tour has kind of taken some preemptive measures. They raised the Tour Championship, the FedEx Cup last year to $15 million. Rory put $15 million in his pocket last year. And now they've announced they raised the Players Championship to a $15 million purse. And so the winner is going to get like $2.27 million. That's one of the biggest checks ever in pro golf. So they're taking preemptive measures against this Premier Golf League. And this would take it one more step to just pretty much obliterate the Premier Golf League.
Yeah, I think it's just the way to go. They already sent emails, both Keith Pelley and Jay Monahan, to their players. Hey, we're not going to give you the permission, because any player that wants to play in another circuit or another league, they have to get the permission of their own circuit. So Jay Monahan and Keith Pelley has already said, no, we're not going to grant you that. So the best way, like you're saying, to squash that possibility, get together. I know that Keith Pelley is a master businessman, and he knows how to do those kinds of promotions and get it. He's done an excellent job already with the European Tour. Unfortunately, they don't have the money or the eyeballs, but all the ideas that he has brought on have been very innovative. If him and Jay Monahan can get together and see that they can just give what the players want, which really would enhance also the eyeballs outside of the US and outside of Europe by creating this world tour, it really will enhance that purpose of trying to grow the game. It's going international. I think it should happen.
Well, Jay and Keith, if you're listening, you want to probably put this on your calendar, take a look at. As we're talking about this, we're putting up on the screen the flow chart that Carlos has put together, how this kind of all flows together, so you can take a look at it. And Carlos, a great job on doing that, and thanks for discussion. And you can hear this in full on the Back Nine Report coming for the Tuesday night edition. So look for us there.
All right, excellent. Thank you for listening.